Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to a new episode of the X Button. This is one of your co-hosts, Alejandro, with me. Also, my lovely. Let's see what shirt you have.
Oh,
Marvelous,
Marvel.
marvelous co-host.
Paul. Hey, everyone.
How you doing, Paul? We haven't seen each other in a while.
It's been a minute. Yeah, we y'all won't notice it, of course, our viewers, but it's been a solid like week and a half at least.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we recorded it early because of Memorial Day, so that we didn't have to record on the holiday, but
It's
to also
fortunate.
hit the release date of our podcast, and then we waited until the next Monday to be able to record, and some things did pile up. But how are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing all right. It has gotten a lot busier, oddly enough, and I thought that it would not, but it is it's just continuing on and on and on. But what have you been up to, Alejandro?
Right, I'm very much just chilling, waiting for my eventual second dose that is finally this Friday, which I can't wait. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel, so I can have a little bit more protection over this stupid disease that has plagued all of us.
Hmm.
And I've been hearing that back home the cases have been like exploding also. So people, even though El Salvador already started vaccinating, but I'm just glad that at the very least I'll be vaccinated and I can worry about something less. But the good thing is that by the time that we vaccinate, the gaming Christmas will have already started, which is very exciting. so
No.
so I might
It's
be like all droopy and feeling under the influence of medication, but at the very least I will have something to be watching, which we're going to be talking a little bit later. But Paul, what to kick us off, like we usually do, what have you been playing?
Well, as we discussed last week or a week and a half ago,
Mhm.
we were going to synchronize what we've been playing for one thing, but besides that, I have not done anything else. I have been mostly working and occasionally playing some Destiny here and there,
The
but
addiction is real,
mostly,
right? Mhm.
yeah. And then I recently got the problem of I played another class and I realized, oh, so I could just redo everything on the other class to build up that one with all of the cool weapons I've already unlocked. And then I realized that if I'm not careful, I'm just going to get swept up even further by evening out all of the classes. So I need to make sure I never do that.
Yeah.
Viewers,
Welcome,
help me.
yeah,
I'm
welcome
trapped.
to the
Don't do
long,
this.
yeah, welcome to the long suffer, the long suffering reality that is being a Destiny fan and being swayed under its spell, its addictive spell and its loop.
It hurts, but yes. It is it doesn't help that especially now that they've rounded out the combat, it's immensely fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's there's always some different way to play the game, especially with all the variations of weaponry and the powers that you can jump around with,
The
and
allure
then
of the
the
raid.
builds on top of that. The lure of the raid is constantly trying to pull on me, even though I am doing my absolute best to avoid being pulled by it because I only receive disappointment as a response.
Yes. Well, I
But
thankfully
yeah,
haven't been receiving disappointment as a result of the
yeah,
times that I played the raid because
you're
it's been
doing
rewarding.
very well.
It's I got all the weapons from the current raid, and pretty much with the exception of only one, I have the rolls I want. The
Oh my
Firefly perk
gosh.
that explodes that explodes on enemies on headshot, then explodes everyone around them is so satisfying. So yeah, I've
And
been playing Destiny 2. I kept playing more of Mass Effect. I platinum the first Mass Effect.
hey, all right.
Surprisingly easy. I was shocked how easy it was, because before it used to be way more complicated. And I played a little bit more of Mass Effect 2, which this time playing before jumping from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 was always, man's Mass Effect 2 is so much better because so much tighter. It feels like a
Yeah.
proper video game. And now the jump from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 is like, man, Mass Effect 2 feels really stripped out now.
Oh man.
because the big thing that Mass Effect 2 did was that Mass Effect 1 was so RPG in so many things. Like super complicated inventory system, getting XP from everything. And then on Mass Effect 2, like it improved the combat, making it more of a shooter with like a proper cover button, actual ammo. So it's not just about waiting for a cooldown to stop, you're actually reloading and all of that. But what that does, especially because when you're not like earning XP all the time, you're like, man, it really feels more stripped out. That it feels like more the thing that actually makes Mass Effect 2 more special is how much better the writing is, how much better it looks. Like in its style, it's more noirish.
Yeah.
It feels more noirish than the first one. The moral ambiguity is higher because of who you work with at the beginning and all that. But from a systems perspective, now that the Mass Effect 1 hasn't been 100% improved, but it has been improved enough to be more satisfying to play. Do you feel a little bit more of the strip backs from ME2 now in the collection? And but I would say that I don't feel they have done much work in the collection either way, because kind of like what I mentioned, when I played those games back on 360, they still held up. So at least Mass Effect 2 till this moment feels more like the up-res I was expecting it to be. Like it definitely like looks sharper, but it looks similar. Like it, and but I always thought that was like a great looking game, with the exception of some stupid faces.
Yeah.
But that's been a Mass Effect problem forever. So, but yeah, I'm gonna continue that. Let's see if I also platinum Mass Effect 2, because Mass Effect 2 is like top 5 favorite games of the generation from 2 generations ago now. So
I agree.
it was just interesting, the jump now, because the jump is not as pleasing anymore. And I think that speaks more to how well of a job they did with ME1. And I can't wait to see how ME3 feels.
So you would say it's less of realizing that Mass Effect 2 has been not as good as you imagined, but more the amazing work they did on Mass Effect 1 to bring it up to par.
Exactly, yeah. Because ME2, yeah, because kind of like I mentioned, Mass Effect 2 would always stand out more because how frankly bad the gameplay of the original was, and how like buggy and busted most of the technical issues of that game were, even till in modern times. But it didn't matter because the story was so good. And ME2 was the cleanup to that. So it's not going to be, for anyone that plays them for the first time, it's not going to be as obvious anymore. But I would still recommend it, because the beginning of Mass Effect 2 is awesome. It's still so awesome how how shockingly it begins for people that don't know.
I would say, yeah, that beginning was very surprising. I mean, even they featured it in the trailers, hyping up that concept, but also like putting things out of order and hyping up the idea that like if you do everything wrong, you can just lose everybody in the mission. That is definitely the one that I go back to. If I ever played the series, I just skipped the first one. I would only play the second, and then sometimes I would continue on for the third.
Well, 2 is universally known as the best one, so for a good reason.
And it's fantastic for sure.
Because the best things that Mass Effect does, which is story and character development, are at its best on 2. Because ironically, for the more I think about it, from the 3 games, 2 is the most plot thin of the 3.
It is very singular in its focus.
Yeah, but it's because it's so plot thin, because then it fills up that thin plot with such amazing character moments.
Yeah, I think it's
more character driven.
Detriment either. I do want to clarify that for listeners. It's singular in this effect that like Ocean's 11 is very singular focused, but that's what makes it great, because within that focus you get this very specific cause to effect on all of the characters within, and then your focus on making sure that they survive as best as you can. And I had the problem of my first playthrough, I knew how I could like get everyone to live, so everyone lived, and then I couldn't bring myself to purposely not do that to see if someone would die. So I never allowed myself to see that loss play out. I was just too afraid
because you get to invest, and also you get too invested in wanting all those characters to live, because it's basically Mass Effect 2 is basically a suicide mission. That's like the main goal of that thing, and building out the crew and getting to know the crew, getting the crew to become loyal to you. And may sound like busy work, but it's the opposite, because in building up the loyalty with your companions, it's like you see some of the best side, even calling it side content, it's almost a disservice. Even though in other games that would be like the side story, because the main story is about going into the suicide mission. But I think that's what made it brilliant, because BioWare found out that they could make a simple plot and then just punch up everything else, and that's why that game is so memorable.
Oh
And I
yeah.
can't wait to delve again, once again, into like the loyalty missions and
Hmm.
building out the crew again. And I will also say it's really nice to play Mass Effect 2 at 60 frames, because even
That's
in a base
true.
console, you can put it in performance mode, even though there's like a little bit of screen tearing. It feels so nice to play. And that was also the thing with Mass Effect 1, with that a game that was so notorious to run on 360 almost at 10 frames a second when you see all the particles and the power fly up.
Yep.
So, and then, so that's what I've been playing. And the thing that I challenged you to make a book club of, which
Yep.
I, I'll, you say it first and I'll say what happened to me.
So we went back to Horizon Zero Dawn, and for
As a
my
context,
thoughts,
and just for
yeah,
context, we decided on that after we watched the Horizon Forbidden West State of Play, and
yeah.
Paul hasn't beaten it, and I haven't played it since I platinumed back in 2017. So go.
So yes, we went back and played Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't even know where I am at this point in the game, but I'm speaking to the man who suspiciously has the same voice actor as Zavala,
Mhm.
which it
From
was
Destiny, Lance
Hendrickson, you
Henriksen.
said?
Lance Henriksen.
Lance Hendrickson. So I was playing through a few missions. The last one that I did was bumping into Hades while we were
Mhm.
going after the tall neck that ended up being like stripped for parts or whatever.
Mhm.
How far am I
You're
with
very
that
close to
mission?
the end.
Okay,
Like
cool.
you're like very farther in the story.
Got it. Because I knew I'd played a lot of it, and I went through that one, and it just felt I feel like everything went wrong that could have gone wrong in that mission because it was so cinematic. It was so cool of a setup, going through everything, and then something dumb would happen that would lead me to fall off of the cliffs. And that happened about 4 or 5 times in the chase to get away. And by the end, I'm just like, this stupid game won't let me do what I wanted
Now,
to.
let me interject with this.
Uh-huh.
Didn't that also become a problem that you haven't touched the game at all, and going back to it makes you feel like you don't remember how to play it?
Um, Normally I would, but in this specific one, it was like one of those scripted linear kind of alleyways to run through. And it was because I wasn't understanding where they wanted me to run. And I would keep like getting caught by something. Like there was a blast that would hit me randomly and it would throw me off the edge. Or I would run up to it and I'd see, okay, well, like this is where they want me to run on the walls, and I would do that, and then I'd jump off and I would like go opposite the way I wanted to, and that didn't work out. But more so, I was enjoying myself. The animations are still as great as possible. I was able to stealth through a whole segment, which was great. The problem I think I was running into was the impact of the bow does not feel satisfying to me. I think that's what really was hitting me at the end because if you put it in this context of something else that feels satisfying is Destiny 2's bow
Mm-hmm.
use is amazing. It feels great pulling it back and feeling the thud of
And the
sending
head
it
and the
off.
head explosion,
Yeah, and then
and then you
you
get a
get
headshot there.
feedback whenever it hits them. That's one thing I always appreciated about like your Call of Duties and everything else. Even if it's not realistic, it'll give you a small thud feedback in your controller when your target gets hit. And I always really liked that. And like there was like a kind of noise as she lets go of the arrow, but it felt like I was doing pennies to these enemies,
So
even if I
there's
hit them
a
in critical
bow that
areas.
in Horizon, there's usually a bow that doesn't feel like that, but then when you upgrade to the more hard hitting bows and then you mix it with the slow-mo they do with like R3
It
and
with the
hit
slow
and
mo,
hit
it does better,
and,
but
and hit, and that's when you feel a little bit more of the boom of
mm,
that. But then there are some bows that, as much as you do it, is that they don't hit as hard, but that's
yeah,
undesigned
I'm
because
wondering.
they
If
want
I
you to
just
switch.
didn't play this game right from the beginning because I have like the purple bows, I have purple everything, and I still feel like I'm just not doing it right, because like the mods, excuse me, the mods only like give you like percentage increases on things,
Mhm.
and it's not very clear for me to know what is like, okay, what am I actually trying to accomplish? What am I trying to get to that best
So
ranking?
think about it this way. Go back to like a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Hmm.
Remember the assess thing that you would put on enemies to assess
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
to assess like the weaknesses and all that?
Yeah.
You have the thing in your ear in
Right.
Horizon to assess
Yeah.
the enemies.
And then
And
it
it's the
gives you like
exact
the
same thing of the specific weaknesses for a specific kind of weapon that you have to hit in a specific kind of enemy to be more strategic. The game's an RPG. And that's the
yeah.
thing. Like it's more of an RPG than it lets on.
That's
So
what I think is messing me up because it plays itself out and
like
it
an action
tells
game.
you
Mhm.
that it's a certain kind of game, but in practice, it's something completely different.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's messing me up because I've been treating it as the adventure action game that it's billed itself as, when in reality, I needed to go at it from a very different perspective.
It like when that other side clicks on you, it can still play as that kind of action game because
Hmm.
like when it's scripted and you go through the different things, it's almost like Uncharted / Tomb Raider with the bow, but it has that extra layer of things that makes it a little deeper.
Yeah,
But you have to kind of click with that for the other thing to also click. It can't just be one or the other, or unless you want it to be just this other thing, put it on easy. That's the
right.
thing, like blast it all the way to the easiest
I
difficulty.
actually did
But
put it on easy after I came back to it the last time just to like get myself
mhm.
through it.
No, and I'll say that because now to kind of interject with my part, because I restarted the game, but with a new game plus that they added within the hardest difficulty, and I barely made it past the invasion of the machines after you do
Like the trial.
the trial competition,
Yeah.
because that game kicks your ass
Mm,
like in the hard difficulty. Because for one, that I had not been playing a lot, so a lot of the nuance that you earn as the more you play on that game,
yeah.
trying to bring that back up when you haven't been playing a lot, really, really, really kicks you, like curb stomps you.
I do find
And
that a lot of games with their new game plus, they just assume that you're coming off of the back of a previous playthrough
yeah, they don't
because they
because
don't mess
the tutorial is not
around.
there. Like the tutorial in that new game plus, like it didn't pop up. I don't know if I turned it off by accident or not, but it doesn't tell you like go to grass, press square to like go to select around here and all that stuff. I haven't been able to make as much progress, and I think I'll just not do the hard difficulty. I don't care about the trophy because the game's brutal. That game, especially when part of the strategy fighting the robots is because they have health. So if you're facing some, you can target one. You see that one has lesser health. Maybe you can move to another one or just focus on that one when there's no health in the thing. So you're like, how much longer do I have to shoot this thing for it to go down? So
Yeah.
it's and I will
Uh,
say this. I had forgotten about the intro when you start as like young Aloy. She looks like Chucky. Her face looks like Chucky. Just
yeah.
someone find young Aloy in Google and look at her. It's uncanny. It's so scary. It's like if you want to like look it up there, Paul,
I'm
but
gonna
it's
I'm gonna do it. Hang on.
just put
Oh,
young Aloy Horizon Zero Dawn.
hang on. Let me go back over here now. And oh, you disabled screen sharing.
Oh, dang it. I didn't. Let me see if that gives
So
the
I'm looking at
option.
it and she's staring into my soul right now and it's
Yes, I
horrifying.
think it should allow you now.
All right, let me try this. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so as you can see,
Let's see.
it's just terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. It's like,
Look at this girl.
I know.
I man, I will say, sometimes there was this weird uncanny valley thing. I love Aloy and the
Mhm.
look she gives.
And then as an
Contrary to
adult,
some
yeah.
people, yeah. But like I know recently we've been
The
having that
controversy,
discussion
the
about
controversy about
which
the
I've noticed that she does have eyeshadow. Somebody was saying, "Oh, there's no makeup on her in the actual gameplay, but she does actually have some form of makeup on." I thought that was kind of funny to share. But anyway,
But how about like if the makeup there was just inherent with how they design her, and now with the new one, because they can have more detail,
oh, you could
they
like
make
they
her
took
more
it away
natural.
more. Let me
But
see. Hang on.
yeah, put Aloy, Horizon Forbidden West. Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, because no, that was from.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
Forbidden
looks
West.
a little different.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, as you point out something like, okay, well, I guess they didn't want us to see that one.
Hmm.
Yeah, they did kind of change the way she looks now that I'm looking at it
Hmm.
from like a fresh
But it's
face.
not that extreme of a change. It looks like someone aged up.
Yeah,
And sometimes when
she
someone
does have a
ages,
rounder face. Like this is
mhm.
from the original.
No, that's from Forbidden West.
Is it?
Yeah,
Wait. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, that's from Forbidden West. That's from the original trailer from the Sony event from
Yeah. Okay.
around this time last year. That's from
Hmm.
Zero Dawn.
Yeah, that's from Zero
She
Dawn.
looks
Okay.
younger. That's the thing. Like sometimes faces when they're younger, they're like
Uh-huh.
leaner, and then when you get older, like it just grows.
Yeah, that's true.
So, moving on
Um,
for moving on from that.
yeah.
So, anyone that's interested in a really hard game, I would say Horizon's a pretty hard one that has way more has way more depth that's required from the player. That's just not going to be an easy cakewalk. But I love the game back then, and I love it even more now because it's so you like. I keep saying that there's nothing more unique in the AAA space than a caveman style game with robot dinosaurs. Like that, you just that in concept is still so cool, and that remains so cool. And I was reminded of that just even playing just the early sections and just remembering where it even goes when the biomes start changing. When like you go from like the more tropical, I wouldn't even say tropical, the like the more
It's like
overgrown
forested.
areas, yeah, the foresty, and going to the snowy areas, the desert, all of that. Like
I
there's
do
some.
like the that change for sure. I I think it's funny because I wore the same outfit for most of the game.
Why didn't you change it?
You see, that's weird because I'm the guy that changes it every 3 seconds. The
And there's
reason
better and
why I
there's better
realized,
suits later on.
well, so that's what I feel again that I just didn't play this game right because I got the purple ones and then
Mhm.
I couldn't find any others. No matter where I looked, no merchant sold anything better, and I'm like, did I look in the wrong place? So yeah, I
Mhm.
was like
And there's this special
getting.
suit that you earn in a quest that gives you an overshield that looks a little bit like Killzone.
I'm definitely not playing this game right
Yeah.
because I've got like the same desert outfit for like most of the game.
Yeah. I'll
Um,
give you a little bit of leeway on that because remember back when you started playing, you had just started playing this game back then when you didn't really vibe with it and you have kept up with it.
mhm.
It's very hard to revive if you didn't start correctly. But if you were like start from the very beginning now and now understanding it a little bit more, sometimes that tends to click more. Like when you're not
I th-
playing something the correct way, it's very hard to like course correct later on. But
yeah,
if you really get into it like really early, like you can go through it like pretty easy. That happened to me with FF7 remake. Like at the point because remember it took me so long to play that game. Like I had to restart it a little bit to like really really nail it because
that's
if you
true.
don't really buy with it, it's gonna be like it's a complete cluster F of not understanding the systems, like not playing things right.
Like a snowball
It,
effect.
it, it just snowballs exactly. So
I think the final nail in the coffin for me, on the reason why, like, I will think if I restarted it from the beginning, I would enjoy it a lot more. I think the last thing that kills me is I do not like caveman aesthetic.
mhm,
I just do not vibe with it as long as I've been around. Like, I love, for instance, the Samurai Jack series.
mhm.
The guy that made that made like a caveman
Oh man, I
animated thing. No
remember
matter how
that. Oh my
great it
god.
is, I refuse to watch it because I just do not like cavemen. I don't like it. I don't care for it. Far Cry Primal.
Yeah,
I
I'm the
will not
same.
touch that game.
I did touch that game, and I'm also someone that the Cayman aesthetic by itself I don't like, but I
Yeah.
like sci-fi, and Horizon is sci-fi, and there's robots there, so that combination is what helped me push through with
I like the
Horizon.
concept of the sci-fi portions of it, but the fact that it's still like the caveman part of like re-getting all that, I just I don't know why. I just don't vibe with it. Like bring me back to like maybe some medieval feudal times
Mhm.
and then maybe throw in some sci-fi, Final Fantasy-esque. I'm sold.
But
But
that's also the thing. Like Horizon starts like just the indigenous, almost Cayman like, but then when you go to Meridian and all of that, it's not that. It's more
but it's still the
medieval.
same aesthetic though. It looks like it has like the buildings and stuff, which I love. I love that part of it. And like my favorite part of the game is actually the terrorist plot, where you're trying to figure out where the bombs are and stuff, and you're running back and forth across the city to stop them from blowing up. I was
Mhm.
like, I'm sold. This is awesome. And then you finish that part and you go back into the forest, and I'm just like, do we have to? I was like, I don't want to go back on the quest. This is dumb.
But then you go into
Um,
the labs, you go into the towers
the
where there's like,
labs were
oh,
pretty cool, and like the giant crab monster robots are like the coolest enemies. They would like three shot me because I didn't have the right armor apparently. But
have you fought with the scorpions, like the ones that go beneath sand and just like jump from
I
the sand?
I think so. But
The first time you fight one of those things, it's like amazing because you
yeah.
have to like drop down into a hole that looks kind of like an arena,
Hmm.
and then it just shows up, and then you
Whoa.
have to fight it, and then you see that enemy pop up normally.
Man, I don't know if I ever did that. I know I love fighting the T-Rexes. Those are immensely satisfying. But besides that, I I hate all flying enemies because I can't use my traps on them.
Yep.
I can't hit anything in the air.
Yeah, the
It's
stupid
horrible.
bear one. It would be like you can't trap them, but you have to like bring them down, right, with sheer
Mhm.
brute force, because there's some sort of explosive arrows that are about like exposing the weaknesses. You have to
Yeah.
like try to get them in the chest for
And
that.
I just like they'll kind of like wiggle around and stuff, and I just couldn't hit them. It's like trying to catch a Zubat in Pokemon
Yeah,
Go.
I'm really interested to see what you think of when you reach the end, like the final confrontation of that thing,
Yeah.
and to see like how much, because that thing I thought really ended strong back then, but again I have to like replay it again to try to remember what it was. But yeah, this is a book club that will continue for us.
Yeah.
The
And it's taken up a good chunk of our time today, but I mean, we had a good amount of thoughts about it, I think.
Mhm,
And not to mention, I mean, even though things piled up today for news, I feel like it's kind of the all related. So,
mhm, yeah, it
um,
is. So now that we
Alejandro, you want to press X
press X
for
for
some news?
some. Dun, 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 dun,
We're listening.
dun, dun,
X
dun,
button three.
dun, dun, dun. All right, Paul. So yeah, the big disadvantage of us recording early sometimes is that things could pile up. But even though they have sort of, not as much as you think, considering that things are gonna explode literally in a week.
Literally.
Because starting this Thursday, now it's like the celebration begins. But before we get to that, some interesting have pop up to follow up to the last episode that we did.
Yes.
Couple news. We did mention last episode that Bloomberg reported that Nintendo was getting ready to announce the upgrade of the Switch, which everyone's calling the Switch Pro because it kind of feels nice.
Mm-hmm.
And they had said that they were going to reveal the thing before they had their big event for E3. We're now in the week of E3 and they still haven't announced it. However, a French retailer that I don't remember the name of already created a listing for it. So usually historically when they make a listing is because they are about to like put a machine up either for pre-order or have it ready for pre-order. So the announcement could still be imminent. With that said, because this is 2021 and in 2021 we can never have anything nice,
Hmm.
maybe the plans have been delayed. Who knows?
Hmm.
Because the COVID of it all, the shortage. Let's not forget that the other machines from the competitors, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, still completely shortaged because of the materials and all that. And who knows that if Nintendo will also need that. And maybe they're like, oh, shoot, will we have the
I
materials for ourselves? So who knows?
I know,
But
and it feels like there's nothing else that we can even say that we haven't already said on this one. It's
mhm.
like at this point, I mean, Alejandro, what do you think would be the one feature you want for a Nintendo Switch Pro? What would be that one thing that convinces you to buy it?
That the games run better,
How much better? What are we talking about? Like, give me.
stable, like more stable. Like imagine, like for example, The Witcher 3,
Mhm.
it's on Switch somehow. The Witcher
I
3 is
forgot
there,
about that, honestly.
but it's at 540p resolution.
Oof.
It
Okay, yeah.
barely runs at 30
So
frames.
upscaling
So
everything.
upscaling everything, it's like a blurry mess. So if it could at the very least hit a base that at least surpasses even what the base PS4 and the Xbox One even were, maybe pro level, like PS4 Pro level, where the performance is at least very stable,
Hmm.
and that it can give 4K for the people that have 4K. The thing with Nintendo is that they don't make the most realistic games, but they do the most artistically eye-pleasing games sometimes.
Yeah.
Like Zelda Breath of the Wild is like,
Oh yeah.
it's not a technical marvel, but it's an artistic marvel.
Absolutely.
There's something very watercolory, very like evocative about the art style that it has, especially when the light composition hits right, like quite right, like with the sunshine and all of that. That
Mhm.
thing will look great on a big TV without jagged edges because of the low resolution or the game running at 20 frames when there's too many particle effects. So that could be the thing. At the same time, when you're in handheld, those problems are not much of a problem.
Yeah,
So
because you
it's
can't.
yeah,
It looks great on the screen, but it's just like, I mean, we've talked about it. My problems with like the 3DS, it's just whenever you're holding it that far away, sometimes it's just difficult to, like, you lose details. You lose, I think I mean, it's very smooth, but I struggle to look down at something, especially if I'm traveling. But whenever it's on screen, I mean, you see the screen
I
tearing,
would
the
say
fuzzy edges.
playing my Switch in the airplane where I was coming here for the vaccine, pretty magical. Like
The
I have,
airplane is good because
yeah,
it's pretty stable for the most part. I'm more
yeah.
thinking like car rides.
Oh no, no, no. I can't watch or play anything on a car ride because of too much movement.
Yeah.
I get dizzy.
I can barely like maybe watch a movie or a TV show
I
episode
fall
now,
asleep.
but
I fall
I
asleep.
don't want to. It's even hard to read sometimes in a car because I'll get motion sickness if I'm looking at the words too long.
Mhm.
It messes me up. What is wrong with getting old, guys?
Yeah.
What? This is
Yeah, we're
garbage.
getting old. Yeah.
I
So
feel like I'm getting gypped out here.
yeah. To me personally, because the Switch is at best a secondary, even tertiary machine. That's
Hmm.
just for like the exclusives there.
I agree.
A Pro wouldn't necessarily be super enticing for me, especially because I still can't get the machine that I really want. So that takes more priority for me than that one.
I guess.
And especially knowing that it's an upgrade. The Pro was an upgrade, and I still remain with the base PS4, and that was fine for me. Unless
That's
things get utterly unplayable on a normal Switch, which I doubt they would. But I
unless
don't
they
see
did
any.
something crazy, that would be a massive jump in technology
Yeah,
for them to do that.
but it's Nintendo, so I don't. They're not the company for that.
I
So,
would I wouldn't even be surprised if they had marginal improvements and made the games required on the new system because of how ridiculous they've been. But we talked about that I think last time.
mhm.
I would say for me, like you said, just up-resing performance mode of just like getting everything smoother. Nothing will really make me want to buy it outside of if they show me like Breath of the Wild 2, they put some really powerful games on there that I don't have the ability to buy on the PlayStation 5 that I own.
At this
There's
point,
not
I
much
just
else.
want games for it.
I want anything.
Yeah, I just want
Not indie
anything.
games. I want actual Nintendo made or like really a lot of love put into those things.
The last thing I
Um,
played on Switch was Hades, and that
yeah,
wasn't even a game from them. That
and
was
now like
that
it's
was
about to
perfect
come
for
to
it.
PS4 and
Yeah,
stuff.
it was
So
like listed in the Korean thing, and once those things start getting listing, it's imminent.
yeah,
That'd be a great game for PS4 players. Like Hades was the best game
Yeah.
game of 2020.
And I think the only reason I didn't continue to play it is because it was only on the Switch, and I was like, well, I could just play other things on my
Mhm.
PlayStation or my PC, and
Yeah, and you can just save it for when you're traveling. Who knows?
exactly.
And that's like the roguelike nature of Hades was perfect for the
Mhm.
Switch.
And
So
you can go through a whole run in like 20 minutes, and I can even just put my Switch into rest mode if I ever need to pause or do
and
anything else.
just
So
keep on going. And
I
it's
have
so
no reason.
satisfying to play. It's so tight. It's like it's
It's
just
good.
everything about that game feels so good. So
It
yeah,
makes me feel
so
bad that I still haven't actually beaten it yet.
and I mean, do you even have to beat it? It's in a roguelike.
It's about the journey, not the
Yeah.
destination, guys. All
And you
right.
can keep running it because the runs are
Oh
random.
man.
So
Yep.
the day we recorded the last episode, Ubisoft was having the deep gameplay live stream to show off Far Cry 6. The big thing about Far Cry 6 is that it's coming out on October 7th, 2021, and that it looks like Far Cry with
Yeah.
some sections that you can play in third person, but it looks like Far Cry. Did you watch the thing?
I did. I'm actually pulling up the trailer right now for everyone to be able to see it. I think no, that's actually the cinematic trailer. Hang on.
Yeah, so as you pull that up, my thing with Far Cry is that by Far Cry 5, the formula has become so obvious and so emblematic of the Ubisoft formula because Far Cry 3 is the one that perfected that formula that they started with Assassin's Creed and then everything kind of fell under that formula, which to Caesar, what is to Caesar? As much as I love Horizon Zero Dawn, that game's a Far Cry game. Like legit.
Yeah,
It's like
and it's oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. All right, so
and you can see like in Far Cry C now the big thing is that you can see the character that you play.
mhm,
So you can play as a female, like you can make male and female. You could do that in Far Cry 5, but in Far Cry 5, it was a voiceless protagonist,
mhm.
and you could never see your protagonist. And
And it's a lot more cinematic the way it is
mhm,
because I mean, like as we've seen, it's always been from the first person perspective. Everything happens to you as the player. And now, honestly, I will almost say Resident Evil has perfected that better than Far Cry did
mhm,
on the first person storytelling. And now it's very heavily a specific character that this is
mhm.
happening to again, that has a reason to be there. I honestly, I mean, I'm kind of okay with it because one, I love cinematics. And I love seeing a specific character going through stuff because I feel for that character rather than just putting myself into the position now.
Yes.
I feel like it lends better to the type of story Far Cry can tell whenever the character has a personal reason. I mean, say what you will about Far Cry 4, I did love
No, Far
that
Cry 4 is my
Ajay
favorite.
Ghale,
Yeah, Far Cry 4 is my favorite. My favorite.
because he had like a specific reason to be there, to be returning his mother's ashes, and then he
Mhm.
gets roped into this whole crazy thing.
And I like
Um,
Pagan Min as the villain, played by Troy Baker.
I did, and I feel like I was a little too harsh on that game when it came out because I love Far Cry 3 so much, that I don't know why Far Cry 4 wasn't vibing with me
So
as
I
much for some reason.
and here's my thing. Like I vibed so much with Far Cry 4 because I never finished Far Cry 3 back in the day.
Okay.
So that was like my Far Cry experience.
You
And again, kind
probably
of like
you'd probably have the same problem because they did that thing with Shadow of Mordor where you play through most of the game and then a whole new continent opens up. And I know how much you
that wasn't Far Cry.
usually
That was Far Cry 3. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. So you probably didn't miss much by not finishing.
I ended up playing Far Cry 3 when it came as a classic edition on PS4 when Far Cry 5 came out, and I actually platinumed it on PS4. I enjoyed it because after, especially in comparison to Far Cry 5, that felt overly big and bloated.
Yeah.
Far Cry 3 felt more leaner in comparison, but also I think Far Cry 3 really falls apart when you kill Voss. Like,
Mhm.
and because that happens halfway through, and then it turns into a paramilitary thing that you pursue in a different side of the
It was
of
kind
the
of
thing.
weird that that was like if they had built up both kind of, I wouldn't say equally, but at least told you of the problem, of the paramilitary side, and it wasn't just like, oh, cool, we beat Voss, he was the only villain the whole time, and then suddenly there's another villain.
So by the way, I
That's
don't know if you're watching this. That
yeah,
weapon that you saw there,
yep,
it's
the Macarena machine.
yeah, the macaroni machine where you shoot discs. It's like so here's what's weird about Far Cry. The stories are pretentious. The way they present the game, especially with like the big, super serious villain, like in Far Cry 5, that it was like the religious cult.
Yeah.
And all of that. But the gameplay is complete madness. Look at this.
It really is. It's a strange mix of, all right, we're going to get really self-indulgent with our statements on politics and the world
Which is a
around
Ubisoft thing.
us.
Yeah, it's the
And
Ubisoft. We're political, but not really.
and then you get like Just Cause gameplay, where like, you don't have the tongue-in-cheekness of the Just Cause series, but you get all of this ridiculousness. And then they're like,
look at a puppy with no legs. Like, I think
mankind is the problem. We gotta let evil people rule, and if you try to stop them, only bad things are gonna happen to you. And like, it's so weird how talking about itself it is.
Story wise, like I've usually just checked out of those games because again, like they're pretentious. They think they feel like they want to say something, but they say nothing, and they're toothless. It's kind of like the Watch Dogs Legion thing. Felt so toothless compared to some important things that happened the year it came out. Like it just has no, like it just wants the attention grabbing visual of doing something that could be inherently political, but it's not. So might as well stop being pretentious. The one thing that I'm excited about the story for Far Cry 6 is the villain that's played by Giancarlo Esposito.
Which he just doesn't miss with his performances. No, so if nothing else,
he is like who you bring to bring everything up a notch. In The Boys,
I think everybody's realized that, because like The Boys, you've got Mandalorian. You've got Far Cry. Man, I can't think.
Breaking Bad.
I mean,
Breaking Bad. His like his
showed up in Better Call Saul now, because of course that's incorporating more of him in there. Funny thing about Giancarlo Esposito, I went back with my wife and we watched Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, he's there.
And it was before he got his like really good gravitas roles, and he's like this dorky. He's the mirror on the wall basically, and he's like this journalist in the real world. And he's really like perky and silly, so it's so funny. I mean,
he's even in Maze Runner, Scorch Trials.
I forgot he was.
Yeah, he was in the Team B, I think it was. Yeah, so like imagine.
I'm gonna go back and watch those. Jeez. Yeah.
so Giancarlo Esposito just has that sense of gravitas to everything that he does, that you just kind of want to see what he does, like how he chooses the scenery.
He does so amazing.
But with class, it's because sometimes when you let someone choose the scenery, it's just like over the top thing, but he manages to never be super over the top. He has like a face to him that you feel like the oxygen like get absorbed out of the room, like when you look at him. And like even like his scenes in The Boys when he's like dealing with Homelander of all things, that he even could stand against Homelander in The Boys. Like that's just something. There's just something about him that I feel like he's great casting, and at the very least should make seeing his performance in Far Cry 6 be interesting, especially because what they do when they let villains go in their endless monologues, at the very least he'll have that kind of personality. So
that is one thing that I'm realizing, they're not going to be able to go the wacky route with the villain at all, because of who he is. He is going to explicitly be a threatening goodness gracious presence, there we go, in the game. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to do that. Are they going to overplay their hand where he loses his threateningness because of how often he is, or is he only going to be a presence when they need something to really go down?
I would say, especially because of the scenario that they painted for this game, it's basically their riff on almost Cuba, like a dictatorship in like Latin America and all of that. So that already is very serious things happen.
I'm wondering, like, as somebody living in Latin America, how does that play in for you on the side of, does this fall into like parody?
Thankfully, so thankfully, at least in my country where I'm at, we're not under dictatorship. Hopefully we never have to fall under that, God willing. But if you go like down or south, like Venezuela, or even the things that are happening right now with the protests in Colombia,
Yeah.
and all of that. Like there's like Latin America, the Latin America countries are so prone to like that kind of like distress in especially political distress, because they can so easily fall under like communism or socialist regimes.
Hmm.
and and I feel I'm personally one that don't get too offended if something like touches on something. I know some people are there, oh, this is too soon, blah 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 blah, but I just know Far Cry is not going to be the bastion of storytelling to properly do that. So I'm
So I think
already,
you're curbing your
yeah,
expectations.
exactly. My expectations is that they have Giancarlo Esposito, and at the very least, he's gonna give a good performance. I'm not expecting them to say anything because, frankly, if with Far Cry 5, they basically had the chance to take a rift at white supremacy and gun ownership from like the rural areas of America, and they barely said anything. So and they released that game at the height of that
I know.
in
It's
America.
only gotten
So
crazier and crazier since then.
exactly. So it's like if they didn't say anything there, even the Division 2, which you can have battles in Washington, D.C., considering what happened in January 6th this year, they didn't say anything. So
I'll give them the point of they predated that.
yeah,
So
exactly.
there
I know,
was
I
like
know.
it wasn't as much of a statement on it, but as much as somehow predating. I mean, Ubisoft has been surprisingly accurate with their predictions on some things.
I mean, they had Rainbow Six Quarantine. And they
Rainbow
had
Six Quarantine. They've got Division 2. I mean, just the
Watch Dogs
Division
Legion.
1, the concept of a pandemic killing everyone and wiping out cities, shutting down. The idea of Far Cry 5 entirely. Yeah, they've Watch Dogs Legion predating Brexit and everything else with the deep state and surveillance
Oh, and of course,
situation.
Watch Dogs Legion comes back the year Anonymous make themselves known again.
Oh
So
yeah, that too. That's always fun.
they couldn't have had quite a better timing, and that's what makes their whole "we're not political" so ludicrous. But yeah, Far Cry 6 coming out in October 7th. It at least has a really cool actor playing the main villain, so that should be interesting. I expect it just to be an Far Cry. So, and it's
You know the
60.
best thing about all of this?
Mhm.
It is going to immediately go on sale in like a
A
month
month,
after
yeah,
it releases. So
because
your
Ubisoft games
boy
are
gonna save some
amazing. Yeah,
money.
yeah, and the best part is that Ubisoft games, no matter what, they're really great purchases for Black Friday. So
Yeah.
you know what to expect in the month after that game comes out. That was from last week. The follow-up for last week's things. This week, Paul. So I'm
It only took us an hour to get to
yeah,
this
yeah,
week.
yes. But that's the thing. From one thing, many things came out. So
Yeah.
I've always been afraid that people may look at us and be like they're PlayStation fanboys, especially for a show called the X Button that has the 3 controllers there. The thing is that sometimes the news tend to skew that way, and Xbox is not saying anything, but PlayStation did, because just kind of a preamble.
Don't worry, guys. We're gonna clown on PlayStation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So it's very interesting that Hermen Hulst, that I mentioned you before, that he talked with Wired back in when they did the other Wired article where they mentioned about the 25 exclusives and all of that. He made a very PR corporate friendly Q&A on the PlayStation blog this past week. It seems to me, and I'm putting this is them basically saying we're not going to have anything at E3, so we're just going to say everything right now here, just so you know. So don't expect anything. Like, don't expect a presentation from them at all this coming week, or because
kind of a gutsy move on that. Where they're just like, okay, guys, don't. I mean, I appreciate them giving us expectations, but at the same time, it's like, really, guys, you're not going to have anything. Like, y'all didn't have anything lined up.
At the same time, remember that the PlayStation logo was in the Summer Game Fest from Geoff Keighley, like yeah. So and that's for this Thursday. So maybe they'll throw him a bone and throw a trailer for something. My thing is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is this Friday. That's when it comes out. That thing's on Thursday. I can see them as far as throwing them the launch trailer for like, hey, here's there. Don't forget, this game comes out tomorrow. So I doubt they're
almost thought that the launch trailer already happened for that, but maybe
who knows? Sometimes they do that. They like, even when they're in close proximity, they'll re-promote something. I mean, they did that with Death Stranding also. So
Yeah,
like in the
that's always weird whenever they kind of like re-release trailers for stuff that already happened,
Mhm.
and doesn't really apply at all to whatever's going on. I don't remember what it was,
Yes.
but oh, Bloodstained. They
Mhm.
said that was coming to Stadia, and they just re-released the trailer
Mhm.
for the same game, but then said, "Hey, oh, it's on the Stadia." Ooh, um, man, when you talk about, oh, I'm about to say a hot take. The circle jerk that people that love Bloodstained is. I will say it was a great game.
Yeah.
I also feel like it doesn't deserve
Damn
all
it.
the
The huge
love
praise that it
it
gets.
has, because it still has problems, guys. Y'all need to talk about those problems if we're ever going to get more Castlevania. So I'm going
Yeah.
to step
So
off the soapbox now
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's already going to get us
So yeah,
canceled.
so after this Q&A, that basically just signaled to me that we're not going to see anything from Sony maybe even until July, because again, they have become too big for their bridges and they don't want to share the limelight of E3 for some inexplicable reason.
Mhm.
So he talked about many things. He talked about how, like, for them, the PlayStation Studios logo that they unveiled last year, when this I just see this like PlayStation Studios logo, they usually, back in the day, they used to delineate who their studios were. They were calling the first party worldwide studios, and then they would do games with second parties that were still exclusive to PlayStation. Think like Returnal.
Yeah.
That's not a studio that they own at
So
all.
they're
They
working
partner
very
with, but they
closely.
made an exclusive for them, but they put the PlayStation logos there. So they were mentioned how they're delineating how they look at exclusives, which to me kind of just sullies the importance of them being a studio that's owned by them,
Yeah.
especially compared to a studio like Microsoft that now are making it
Directly
a
owned.
point to be the Microsoft game studios. Look at all our
Yeah.
23 studios now. So some weirdness, but they're the big hits from this Q&A. The big one. What was a game, Paul, that last year in the before they when they revealed the prize, they said this game is coming in 2021 with literally no name and just a slogan and no gameplay.
War. This God of War.
Yes. So, in the least surprising news of all, Hermen Hulst officially confirmed the sequel to God of War 2018, who we are all calling God of War Ragnarok, just
Mhm.
because of the line Ragnarok is coming, even though they have never titled the game. It's not coming out this year. It's out of 2021, moved into 2022. The reasoning is that they're juggling right now Horizon and God of War, and God of War started development a little later than Horizon, so they didn't supposedly want to put one on top of the other, so they shifted God of War away.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
mean,
that would have been obvious. Like,
it makes sense, and I'm not like really mad about it.
me
I'm a
neither.
little disappointed because of how much I love God of War.
Yeah,
It makes sense. It doesn't surprise anybody really.
it shouldn't surprise anyone when you
No.
put a year in a game with like no concrete, like not even fall 2021. It was just 2021, no name, not even gameplay. You would be a fool to expect that game to come out this year, in
Yeah.
the year of the pandemic, like in the year where we're seeing the after effects of the pandemic and everything getting delayed. So, of course, it's like that's not a surprise in the slightest for me. It's a that was not going to come out this year, and I don't even know it's going to come out early next year, because we still don't know till this day when Horizon Forbidden West is going to come out. He once again reiterated that the development of that game is on track to potentially hit this holiday season, but they're not 100% committed to release date, and they don't want to like stretch their teams and overwork them just to try to make an arbitrary release date. So there is a possibility Horizon Forbidden West is not a 2021 game. It could be a 2022 game, which, interesting enough, did you know that the first Horizon was originally supposed to be the big fall 2016 game?
I
And
do remember that, and it
and
got
and that
delayed,
got
but because
until
I didn't
February.
care about it,
Mhm.
I didn't even buy it on release. I think I did,
Yeah,
if I'm remembering right.
it went from a holiday 2016 game from when it originally was announced,
Mhm.
and then it became a February 2017 release. So, And not surprising because ironically, the previous two Guerrilla games, Killzone 2 and Killzone 3,
Yeah.
that were not Killzone Shadowfall because that launched with the system, they
Right.
also came out in February. So I wouldn't be surprised if things don't really shape up together, that Horizon could be a February 2022 game, which that would put it 5 years later for a thing. And I wouldn't mind. I like early games, but they're not committing to it. So there is a chance that if that gets pushed, don't expect this new God of War that doesn't even have its freaking name to even be on early 2022. It might even be mid to potentially even the fall for 2022. So much for that. But here's the more important one in that Q&A that he kind of just slipped there. That was actually really big news. Hulst also confirmed that that this God of War sequel and the upcoming Gran Turismo 7 were gonna come to PlayStation 4.
Yep, and which means, Alejandro, that we are not going to be getting the full power
Nope.
of the PS5 in play for Sony's next wave of big exclusives.
Yeah. So think about it this way, Paul.
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart this Friday is the last game that they announced back when they revealed the PS5's machine and all that we know takes full advantage of the PS5. These games are like late 2021, 2022 games that are still going to be on a machine that came out, no joke, 9 years ago. Because that's the thing. With these things coming to PS4, they mean they're coming to the base model that came out in 2013, not the Pro. The Pro will be there.
They're going to have to figure something out about that one.
Yeah. And what game last December released on last gen consoles that was completely borked?
It was so it was a game that rhymed with cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll say this. Spider-Man Miles Morales was on PS4 and PS5. You played the PS5 version. I played the PS4 version. The PS4 version was great.
Yeah. But I think that is where both games are made in tandem with that tech involved. Where the PS5 version was held back by the requirements to adhere to that PS4 hardware. Where if you really want to push the PS5 at this point, you really have to start giving ground on the PS4 side, stability wise. Because if you look at something like, man, I'm blanking out on any examples right now, but if you play something on the PS4 and then you jump over to the PS5, it's like night and day, obviously. But then sometimes you can't play the game stably on PS4 anymore if you want to really get the best out of it.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this because because there's many things that bother me about this. So but I'll see it from the positive side first. From a business sense, this makes perfect sense. You have 110 plus million PS4s out there. Of course, you're gonna make more money by putting it on both. What this does, though, is such a contradiction to many things. So for one,
yeah, why is this is actually not as big of news except for what you're about to say, which is the strange behind the scenes part of it. Because in the end, I feel like any game that's made for the PS4 that is also on the PS5 is going to gain so much power out of it.
Yeah,
from the performance and the resolution, everything. Alejandro, what are we actually mad about?
So back when the Series X was giving more details, and Matt Booty, Matt Booty, that's his name, the head of the Xbox first party studios that manages a portfolio and all that. What did he say when they unveiled smart delivery? Well, what was the big thing that
was it the fact that you can you're going to get everything automatically on the next level for free without
because for the first 2 years and change, the exclusives that they were going to release were going to be on Xbox One and on the Series consoles.
Right.
What did everyone did? They clown on them because they're like, you're intentionally have a better machine and you're like shackling it to an old machine by doing that. And what did Sony say when they were asked directly?
They said we believe in generations, and everything that is going to be made during the PS5's life cycle is going to be made for the PS5 with no pulling back. We are going to focus entirely on the consumer for the next wave of the
Jim
future.
Ryan, the
We're going to go
president
for it.
of SIE, he literally said, when you go to the trouble of making a new machine, it's to give new experiences that can only be had in this machine. And then you couple that with the Mark Cerny presentation from GDC, the opening salvo. Remember that 52 boring AF presentation where they talked about the SSD and all that? What's the big thing about the PS5 other than the big flops, the more memory? What was the big thing that they were pushing?
All of the exclusives that
No,
were
no, no,
going
no,
to
no.
be for it.
No, 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 no. They made a point of saying that the SSD they custom built for the PS5 is so revolutionary that they that when people take advantage of just building for that SSD, it completely changes the way they design things.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so like how you see how so many games, including God of War, that we just were watching the gameplay for, how many games had to like circumvent their design to like load things. So that's why they funnel you into the tunnels, because that's how they load things from the in the background without us knowing and making that part of the design. The SSD was going to be able to do away with that so that things could be designed differently.
Mhm.
So, of course, so yeah, okay, makes sense. So PS5 exclusive are going to take advantage of that because the PS4 hard drive, not even close to being as fast as the SSD that's on PS5. So that already should have changed a different philosophy in design. But because the games are now going to be on PS4, then that means the big thing that they were pushing, the SSD, is just a fast loader. It's just about the quick loading times. It's not about how it was going to change design. So the PS5 is basically what you do when you play a game on PC, you play something in media specs, and then you play on Ultra.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, yes, it's better, but it's like, what were you even talking about then?
You're stunting the growth.
Yes, you're stunting the growth of your machine. And to be fair, because I know a lot of people are the big talking point is that, man, the PS5 is so absolutely hard to get to. Is that because everyone's scalping it, they're barely producing it? At this point in time, they have sold more PS5s than they did PS4s in
Which
2014.
blows my mind.
Blows
If
my
they had
complete,
been
yeah,
able to keep up with the demand, imagine how many more they would have sold over
exactly.
what the PS4
Yeah,
did.
so there's no excuse, like you can't make that excuse, because if that would have been the excuse when Killzone Shadowfall, Infamous Second Son, the big exclusives that came at the beginning of the PS4 came out, they were just on PS4. They didn't gimp a PS3 version. They were still just in the machine.
I'm going to interject because I'm going to point out that everyone forgot about this. When the PS4 launched, you could not find them for an entire year after the release.
I found it 6 months later. That was me.
Exactly. You were able to find it. I was able to get it on release because I called it once again that back in 2013 you could not find them. They would get maybe one or two at the GameStop that I had worked at,
Yes.
and they would immediately sell out the day they showed up within like an hour.
Yes, but to counter interject with that, that didn't mean that Sony was putting the games that were coming on PS4 to PS3. They still kept them on PS4.
Yes. No, I
Now,
mean,
yeah.
we are talking about kind of a different thing. I just wanted
Mhm.
to interject with that context
Yes.
of the reason we're getting more PS5s is despite the fact that there's a not nationwide, international shortage.
Mhm.
I feel like Sony still has been able to put out more PS5s overall and given people an online method of it. And as bad as it's been,
Yeah.
I
Somehow they're
still
still selling
think
a lot. They could have
it's
sold
just
even
people
more.
didn't really notice
Mhm.
in 2013 when the PS4 came out. So it would make sense that at this stage, they've been able to put out technically more PS5s than they did PS4s at the
Because
time.
the reality is that they're
Yeah.
carrying the momentum of the PS4 into this one.
Yes.
So it makes sense that they have sold more in the same time frame. Imagine how much more they could have even sold. So there is no like the excuse that there's barely any PS5 there, so they're not gonna make their money back if they just leave those games on PS5. That doesn't pass the smell test for me because they're selling more. Things have changed, and the things that have changed is that business has changed.
Yeah.
And what really gets me, it's the lying. Because I kind of, because I've seen enough behind the scenes videos and have an idea how development works, that this PS4 versions for God of War and Gran Turismo, they didn't just suddenly come out. They're not something that you can go into the file. Okay, here's the game, file, save as, PS5, turn to PS4, boom, here it is. No, those versions take time. They take QA, they take development and all that. So that was always the plan. So why lie?
I know.
Why lie? And
All I
because,
can think is they didn't plan it out when he stated something like that. I mean, we've seen it now with Cyberpunk, is that different teams have different levels of knowledge on certain things. And I'm convinced that every time somebody says something at this point and it comes back that that wasn't the case, is that they're probably operating on incorrect information. And not to like give people a pass for stuff like this, but I do think there's a certain level of this guy was very optimistic on how it works. And then after the fact, they were like, hey, you know what? Well, the president delegates. That's what I'm thinking. Is like he put this thing out here and they were like, hey, buddy, that doesn't actually work that way. And he's like, well, crap. I guess I'll have to say something else later on.
I mean, he later, when Spider-Man Miles Morales was put on PS4 in September, they were using the talking point that we want to keep supporting the PS4 for the next 2 to 3 years. We have 110 million there. So I'm like, but you said you believe in generations.
Yeah.
What? So it's, to me, it's like, again, it's like, I understand what they're doing for the business decision, but in a way, I appreciate that the one that actually turns out better in all of this is actually Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because they were honest. If there's one thing I have to give them,
it's true.
Other
they
than
said
the
it
fact,
from the beginning, because
from
that's
the very beginning,
realistic.
Exactly. From the very beginning, they understood the business and all that. They took a lot of crap because Sony had to be contrarian at the time and be like, no, we believe in generations. That's why we're making a new machine. Microsoft hasn't changed his messaging. The only thing Microsoft has screwed up is the games. They're still not here. And ironically, I didn't even put this in the news, but like their only exclusive that they have released, the Medium that came out in January and everyone forgot about, has already been rated for the PS5. So the only one exclusive,
really,
it's gonna show up in PS5.
Gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so, and it makes sense. The Medium wasn't in a first party game; it was a game that they made a deal for it to show up there first. So, yeah. But
makes me wonder if Returnal would ever make its way over to Microsoft.
No, because the difference with Returnal, it's like that's a second party game that they slapped the PlayStation Studios thing on. So that means that Sony has that thing for their own.
Got it. Okay.
That's kind of like different. So that's what's funny about Microsoft. Like they really are a company that have done everything right, but get the games out. That's literally the one thing that they just, for the life of them, can't seem to get right. But Sony just looks, I think they just look foolish by contradicting themselves that way. And what makes this ironic is that, you know why I was so super excited to really want to get a PS5? Because part of my mind was that because God of War is coming. They had not said anything about it coming to PS4, even though I suspected a little bit after Horizon was going to be also in PS4. And obviously you saw the flow chart that I show you, that what's going to be improved on PS5 versus you playing the game on PS4. Remember, I put it in our text chat. And that to me was like, okay, this at least softens the blow of me not getting a PS5, because the game I really wanted it for, it's also going to be on PS4. Granted, if the opportunity to play it to get a PS5 finally arrives and I get one, I'm going to play it on PS5, because of course I would. It's just sad knowing that, okay, it's at the back of your mind. It's like we saw Horizon running a week and a half ago on the State of Play. You cannot deny that game is not pretty. And that game was running on PS5, and you see how like it's taking advantage of the hardware.
Yeah.
It's just when you have the knowledge of how they pitched this new generation for the PlayStation with the SSD and how that was going to change the way they were going to pursue some design elements with the SSD. And that to me, it's just that to me is kind of disappointing, because it's like they're undermining the one big key selling point of why they push for that custom built SSD in the first place. And I feel bad for the people that were sold a bill of goods and were and bought a PS5 with the promise that they were gonna buy PS5 specifically built games, to which, as of this moment, there are only three: Demon Souls,
Yeah.
Returnal, and now Ratchet and Clank. Granted, maybe they could announce something else, but as of right now, the three biggest exclusives, the biggest, because Horizon was huge. That was a God of War is even bigger. Gran Turismo, don't even tell me about it. That it has a huge audience. Now they're also on PS4. So it's like, if you don't have the chance to buy a PS5, don't worry. You're gonna have a version. I mean,
gonna have. I mean, now the question that I'm wondering is how far they're going to slide that scale over to the PS5, because the further they go on the PS5, the more trash it's going to be on PS4.
Yeah.
That's also going to reflect poorly on them by making it available on both. So
exactly, at a certain point, you have a new machine, you have to cut loose. Like this is the first time that Sony, first party, has straddled the lines with its games. Because before then, like there was always a clear delineation of when they were cutting support, at least from them. You have your third parties, your Maddens, your FIFAs, your Call of Duties that would straddle the line for a little bit before cutting loose going forward. Like this last generation, you know that it was until Call of Duty Infinite Warfare that we didn't have a Call of Duty that was on PS3 and 360.
Yeah.
And even sports games take a while before they phase out all hardware.
I think it was like only within 5 years, I think, that it wasn't put out on the 360, or even like there was one that was made for the PS2, I thought.
Even PS2, there were still like PS2 games that kept being released in sports game for a while, because those games are easy to make. You can make a lot of money by putting it. They're like low investment, high reward games and all that.
I guess it makes sense because like the storage capacity isn't required. All you have to do for each individual version is upscale the resolution, because the mechanics can stay the same. The animations are probably not nearly as much storage space on that, so you can keep it going for the older models. So yeah, I mean, if I was them, I would keep it on that oldest level of tech as long as physically possible, because it doesn't really do much for me.
Yes, but now with like their big marquee games, they're finally like doing that cross generation thing, and again, like the PS4 is about to push its ninth year. In 2023 is going to be 10 years. Our exclusives that they're about to announce also going to be coming to PS4. That would suck. I was okay with some games that released me in 2021 because, okay, it's 1 year. I'll give them that. But pushing now into 2022, that's like, oh no, I just imagine. Do you know how harsh the fan is on base PS4s? Or even in PS4s in general? Imagine trying to run these games in 2022.
Honestly, I think it is ridiculous, and it's horrible.
Yeah, like the PS4s are gonna explode.
I know.
They're gonna create fires.
Even mine like finally died on me. Just like I would say a year ago, maybe. Like somewhere in the summer of last year. Maybe like 2 years ago, my base PS4 died and I had to get a Pro, and I used that as the opportunity to kind of upgrade.
I'm legit shocked. I'm still rocking my launch unit.
I don't know how you're doing it, frankly, but especially with the stuff you put it through.
Yes.
The games that you play is far more than I've played, and I just don't know how you do it.
I got lucky.
That El Salvador PS4 is built different.
No, I bought mine in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma PS4s are built different.
And to be fair, I was in Oklahoma and I bought it through Amazon. So wherever they had it in storage, and they brought it to me. So
right. I mean, El Salvador is pretty humid, you'd say, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also pretty dusty.
I'm just thinking, like, I wonder if it's like the environment as well that puts a certain amount of
I'll say this. I never put my machine in an enclosed space. It's always been in the open. Obviously not in the floor, but always like up there.
Right.
Not in
Mine was always on the entertainment center as well.
Okay, that probably may have happened there, because when it's enclosed, it can gather more heat, and if there's too much dust, it can kill it.
Well, it was on top of it. So like it was kind of open and untouched by anything, but I'm just wondering, like, maybe the presence of pets, any other random things, like the cat wants to go around the PS4 and it
Thankfully,
sucks
I had
all of
no.
the loose
Yeah,
hair off the cat into the PS4, you
yeah.
know?
No, to be fair, I never had cats,
Yeah,
so maybe that helped.
I
But
could.
yeah, I'm still rocking it. The thing that I've been playing here is that my PS4 is still up and running. It's
Mhm.
crazy, but someday that thing's gonna have one leg bigger than the other. But yeah. So overall, I would say this, that from a business sense, makes sense what they would put this out, especially with the perception of the PS5 not being readily available and not probably being readily available until like 2022, like we read like a couple of weeks ago from a Taiwan thing. But then just had Sony has to be called out. They're a bunch of liars. So moving on,
They
because
do have to get their
yeah,
crap together. But yes, let's wrap
real
this.
quick, yes.
Alejandro, what are we talking about
So
next?
also Hulst in that same Q&A, they reconfirmed their commitment to PC. So for everyone expecting them to just remain on PS5, their Horizon and Days Gone experiments were not experiments. That's going to be their norm for them going forward.
Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because I also appreciate the way they're also doing it, because unlike the Microsoft approach of releasing everything day and date on PC, to the point where it's like, why do you even have an Xbox? They said, if you really, 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 really want to play this game when it comes out, you have to get the machine. And then if you're a PC player and want to get those games, just wait. They will be there in 2 or 3 years. That's I feel they're weaponizing FOMO that way, but it makes sense for them, because
Yeah.
for Microsoft, because they're such a software company, it behooves them for anyone to play the games wherever they want, because they're in the software, they get that. Sony's a hardware company, so it behooves people to actually buy the machine. So, but then at the same time, not cut off game sales by not putting them on PC. I think this is the best of both worlds scenario. If you really want to play a game, you can buy it at launch when it comes into console, and then wait a few years later if you want to play it on PC, and they can double dip there. I feel it's a good way to not undermine their console business, because they really need, at least for Sony, they have to get those hardware numbers in.
They have nothing else to
But then at the same time, they understand that it's foolish to cut off access to one game and not putting it on PC and get more money. And more money means making more games. And finally, and one final thing that Hulst mentioned was the importance of Team Asobi, which this is a studio team that was within Sony Japan studio. They're the ones that made Astrobot, the VR, the VR game from PSVR that came out in 2018, and also Astro's Playroom, the incredibly beloved launch packing game that comes with every PS5. That would be the first thing that I play when
was a surprisingly fun game.
everyone has singing the praises of Astro's Playroom, which we're looking at right now. And this is very interesting that they emphasize this, because this happened before we restarted the show in May. There were rumors that Sony was winding down Studio Japan. Studio Japan has been Sony's oldest first party studio. They have made many classic games like Legend of Dragoon. That's where Shadow of the Colossus came in, when they had Team Ico within Studio Japan. That's where even Gravity Rush came out, even Knack.
Which I mean, I never ended up playing Knack, honestly. I actually do
The
have
first game sucked. The second one was good.
Okay.
But Astro, wow, it was like such a hugely beloved IP for the PSVR that everyone was like, this does for 3D platformers what Mario 64 did, like the things that he was doing with VR. And Astro's Playroom, from what I understand, is a great showcase for the DualSense. So, considering it's such a beloved, quirky, family-friendly game in a studio that recently has driven headlong into more adult fare, like Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, like bloody things. They emphasize that they're really investing on Team Asobi now, and Studio Japan is basically gonna be Team Asobi. So like all the other what Japan used to be, it's done. But Team Asobi remains there, and they're gonna invest harder on it. So if you love Astro, or the idea of Astro, or something this family friendly, that's gonna be the studio for it.
Which I'm glad that like I think there was a point we were kind of worried that they weren't going to continue
The quirky.
with it,
Mhm,
but I mean, it looks like they realized the value of it, which I would
mhm,
say is an absolute win for them because Xbox has nothing like this.
mhm. They tried with
Micro,
Super Lucky still, and that game was horrible.
yeah,
So
and yeah, really, and so no, Nintendo only is the closest thing to this, and I would dare say that this has more of that true Mario feel than some people would say Odyssey even had.
people made the argument because Mario Odyssey has been one of those games that it's one of the best reviewed games ever made by critics and all that, about a bunch of tens and all that.
Hmm.
But it doesn't seem like people really like it. Like when you
Yeah,
really ask about it, they don't put it in the upper echelon of Mario's. I
right.
wouldn't put in the upper echelon, even though I really liked Mario Odyssey. But I would rather play Sunshine or even Galaxy before
Hmm.
it. And people kept saying that Astro's Playroom in this 3-5 hour short time as a pack-in has more creativity and more charm than even Odyssey had. So if they're gonna double down on that, I'm more excited because I have kept mentioning we have kept mentioning how I feel like Sony, once a bastion of creativity had become one note with the kind of games that they were releasing. This is how you keep the variety. And finally, one thing they confirmed basically the death of Days Gone in a very cheeky way of like Band Studios working on a new IP where they're gonna
Yeah.
develop they're gonna use all the systems they developed for Days Gone. They're gonna put it in a new IP. And Band also came out with like the kind of like Sony Santa Monica released the big written statement when they announced the delay. I think you answered to them
Hmm.
because I saw your tweet.
Yeah.
And, so the Band did something similar. So when Sony put this Q&A, they also put that in to kind of confirm. So RIP Days Gone. But hey, at the very least, we're going to
Yeah.
see the systems of Days Gone be put in an IP. And I
At
hope
least we know something else is coming out of it
yeah.
because I think for a while we were worried that it was like, oh shoot, they're shutting them down because Days Gone didn't do well
No,
at first.
they basically made them a support studio, according to
Firstly,
that Bloomberg report, where they were going to
yeah,
become support studio to work on the new Uncharted or maybe support for factions or something like that, something they didn't want to do. So I'm glad that at least they won their autonomy back. It unfortunately came at the cost of the two directors of the studio. So
yeah,
it's
really,
so kind of necessary. But yeah, that was just the Q&A that Hermen Hulst had. In other news,
yeah, really,
we've been talking about E3 the last three shows, I feel like, because every day we feel like someone announces their date or something. Now we have the schedule with the full schedule from Saturday, June 12th to Tuesday, June 15th. So
as for I
on
guess each day in general,
exactly, yeah. This is like what we have here is what E3 has put out there. So for what the things that cover their event, this doesn't include Summer Game Fest. That's its own thing on June 10th, and
right.
Game Fest will probably go through the whole summer again. Who knows? But at the very least, the
I hope
opening
it
song, yeah,
doesn't, but
yeah, yeah. I hope that it's more segmented, kind of like he's starting with a Geoff Keighley's going to start with a big event where he's going to reveal a bunch of stuff at once. So I hope that he knows how to properly segment stuff instead of the game of hot potato or Russian roulette that was last summer, not knowing when something was going to be announced or not. But Summer Game Fest is its own thing. This is E3 on Saturday, June 12th. E3 2021 was going to kick off with press conferences from Ubisoft and Gearbox. So that's interesting. But here, interesting but not surprising because Gearbox is not just the Borderlands studio. They also publish stuff. Like they were the publisher of the awful Godfall that came out at the launch of PS5.
yeah,
They were the publishers. They didn't make the game. So, and I just say awful. I haven't played it, but everyone clowns on that game really hard.
yeah,
So Ubisoft is gonna have their thing. So we'll see what they announce. And also they're gonna have a session with GameSpeed. So GameSpeed throughout most of last year, I don't know if you remember, I would always post in our group chat about Jeff Grubb, this journalist that would like know how to leak some certain stuff. Like he knew when Nintendo Directs were happening. I don't know if you remember last year because we were at the starvation point of the Nintendo Direct, and he said it was going to happen one day, and it ended up not happening, and everyone wanted his head. And then the Nintendo Direct happened literally the next day. So he's going to have a session at the end of that day. That will be interesting because he's quite the leaker. Sunday, June 13th, starting at and I forgot, on Saturday it starts at 10 p.m. at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be your 12.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. So and then on Sunday, June 13th, that starts at 8:45 a.m. Pacific time, 11:45 a.m. Eastern time. Your 10:45. Microsoft, the big one for me. Microsoft Bethesda Game Showcase. So
How likely do you think they are to just kind of show a bunch of Bethesda stuff that might be in the future?
It's 90 minutes. So usually when they make 90-minute conferences, they should have something.
That's true.
And then that same
or like a concert just thrown in the middle for the fun of
exactly. Yes. Yeah. But Microsoft is not the concert dudes. The ones that would do a concert would be Square Enix, which will also have a showcase that same day following Microsoft. And they will there's going to be a PC gaming show and also a future games show. I don't know what the heck a future games show is. I'll still check it out.
About them either. I know about the PC gaming one though.
Yeah.
Warner Bros.
Yes.
Back for Blood and 24 Entertainment. Who does 24 Entertainment? Or what do they do?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
So
but at least Back for Blood is going to have a little something because they just had a trailer drop of like 2 weeks
so
ago,
interestingly, I think Back for Blood. Oh yeah, never mind. Back for Blood used to be a June game and that got pushed to September, October.
Right.
So there's going to be more. So if you like Left 4 Dead, they're going to show more. So apparently that's the big Warner Bros. Thing E3 is going to have. Monday, June 14th, bunch of weirdness. So apparently there's going to be press conferences from several indie developers. So give me a sec.
We got a few from Capcom at least, so that's going to be the biggest. It looks like. Oh
yes, there's Mythical Games, Freedom Games, Racer. So they might have mini presentations throughout there, and then there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion panel.
I feel like you're just making up these words at this point.
Yeah, no, that's I took this all from their website. So they're grasping for straws to make an event, but
it really sounds like it. My goodness.
And also Verizon and Intellivision are going to be featured along with Ascension with Ven. I have no idea what Ven is, but Verizon will be there.
Kind of weird for them to jump into this whole gaming thing.
And then
doing a tech show.
Yeah, then Tuesday, June 15th, Nintendo Direct.
That's
a real Nintendo Direct.
Full treehouse.
In a full treehouse. So why will they show up? Because usually it's something that they show up at E3. They do the deep dive on the treehouse.
Lord have mercy. I really hope they do something cool. Oh my gosh.
Think about this. We haven't had a Nintendo Direct E3 style since 2019. And then even before that, the September 4th, 2019 last real Direct. And then we had the one that was disappointing from February earlier this year. So
yeah,
they should have the goods. So are you going to watch all of this, Paul?
I will not.
I might, because I might be knocked out from my vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try watching as much of this as I can. I should be able to watch a good amount of it for like Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to peek in for like the Square Enix and the Microsoft, at least maybe Ubisoft. Monday's going to be tricky for me, but I will definitely be tuning in for the Nintendo Direct as much as I can. And then we can see if we can do any reactions or whatever.
Reactions will be if we would do reactions, it would either be for Microsoft or Nintendo. Yeah. And for our next episode from right now, I would say it would go live after we watch the Nintendo Direct. We're going to record to talk about E3, or unless you want to do it in an individual Microsoft one and then an individual Nintendo one.
That'd be kind of
yeah. So then we would have to record
individual pieces.
Yes, individual pieces like on Sunday when after it shows up, which is for 90 minutes early, and then right after the Nintendo Direct. By the time the Nintendo Direct airs, I'll be back home again with my other computer, so that'd be fun. So then next week's episode might not be in the regularly scheduled time, but we might have extra 2 ones on regular times. So, and to wrap up, because we're in E3 in the E3 topic here, 2K games suffered a leak. You probably didn't notice. that basically signal a few of the things that they may announce this week. There were a couple of things, but two of them stuck out to me. Apparently, they're doing a Borderlands spin-off based around Tiny Tina. What kind of game it'll be? Will it be a first-person shooter or something else? Who knows?
That one, it would make sense only because they did nothing with Tiny Tina in Borderlands 3.
Mhm.
And I'm still a little disappointed with that because of how much I loved Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 just felt like it was lacking a lot of the
Mhm.
heart
Yeah.
that the last two did.
Yeah. So we'll see what kind of game that Tiny Tina Borderlands spin-off is. Will it be kind of like the pre-sequel? Who knows? More interestingly, though, they're also doing a Marvel game in the vein of XCOM.
Now that got my attention
Yeah.
because it makes me wonder how far involved it would be. Would it be Marvel characters doing XCOM things, or would be in the universe where you
Yeah.
have like a strike team?
Will it be a top-down Marvel Ultimate Alliance stuff thing, but the gameplay is XCOM, where you're like strategizing
Right.
as you go? Who knows? I think that'd be cool. It's
It
a
would.
different kind of Marvel game. It's not a
If
games as a
they
service, or it's like Spider-Man or
right.
like Avengers.
If they could really lean on the abilities of each character and really let you do special things, like Spider-Man can actually move on like wall spaces,
Mhm.
and Iron Man can fly or something like that,
And
would
that's the
be
beauty of
really cool.
XCOM. That would just be like, from what I've seen of XCOM, is like how unique your troops can be with their roles and all of that. And
With the
you,
right stuff, you can do some crazy things. Yeah.
yeah. So considering we just read the E3 schedule, 2K Games is not in the schedule. However, their parent company, Take-Two Interactive, is in the inclusion panel that we mentioned. It'd be weird that in an inclusion panel they announce a Marvel game and the Tiny Tina spinoff.
Yeah, that
My
would be
bet
strange.
is that if they're announcing anything, unless this leak came too early and they're not ready and everyone just spoiled the surprise, is if we see anything, we might see it at Microsoft's conference, or we will see it at Geoff Keighley's thing, because he's going to make a bunch of announcements.
Yeah, if we
So,
saw it, I would feel like it would be in one of those places under like, oh, coming to Xbox, but it's actually like not exclusive, you know?
mhm.
Which they do that all the time. So that would make perfect sense that it would pad out the 90 minutes Microsoft has set aside to
Mhm.
reveal something new that Take-Two is going to have.
And the thing is, if they have a 90-minute presentation, that's not just going to be Microsoft games. They will have
Right.
third-party
They're going to
stuff.
have a
So
bunch of stuff, which that's the main reason why I would be excited about the Microsoft thing outside of probably seeing more Halo Infinite.
that's usually why I tend to look at Microsoft stuff, because they get so much third-party stuff that inherently also comes to PlayStation. And since I'm main on PlayStation, that's beneficial to me. So that's what makes me excited for their conference. So we'll see if these two games are there. But Paul, that's it.
That's
This
it.
was all the news. Yeah, that
This might be our longest episode yet.
maybe not. Maybe it will be just as long as the first one we did when we returned.
Whew, that was a
So,
lot of information that we had to get
but
through.
hey,
But
we will have more information overload this Sunday.
yeah,
And so we're mentioning about maybe recording on Sunday something. Would you be willing to do one for the Game Fest from Geoff Keighley's this
I would
Thursday?
like to, and we can kind of play it by ear as
Mhm.
far as the exact details, but let's see how we can make that happen.
Yeah. So
And
for everyone listening right now, let's put it like this. There will be at least a guaranteed episode after the Nintendo Direct that will go live after we record, after watching the Nintendo Direct,
mhm.
whenever that is.
And
It
that'll
may go,
probably be separate from our regular program, right?
yeah, or it could be. So that's the thing. Like, we can either do a regular program that talks literally about everything, or we do three separate ones or two separate ones.
Yeah.
You'll see whenever we get the feed, you get it in your feed. We'll play it by ear. Like, I would like to do three separate ones, one for this Thursday after we record, after seeing Geoff Keighley's thing.
Yeah.
I would like to do one for Sunday after we see Microsoft's conference, and do one for Nintendo after we watch Nintendo's thing. If that doesn't pan out, because we don't know what our schedules will be, and also I'll be traveling halfway through that time or near the end of that time, then our next episode could then be a Wednesday show, and we just mix all of that together. We'll see.
Yeah.
So either three short ones or really meaty big Wednesday show for next week, and then we go back to our regularly scheduled Tuesday. But we'll play it out. So for everyone that has been listening to us, we just want to thank you so much for continuing to listening to us. We love, I'm seeing the podcast stat numbers, and they're solid for our startups. So I'm feeling pretty confident about where things are going, other than
Awesome.
the YouTube views. And don't forget to like and subscribe here in our YouTube channel, here in Escape Media. And you can always follow our podcast at our anchor.fm/escape media link that you'll see there. And you can listen to every podcast service that you can think on. And also, if you have a specific one that's not there, you can use the RSS feed, link it to your podcast service of your choice, and you'll get the episodes, no problem, every Tuesday at random times in the afternoon, sometimes early in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, but it's still on a Tuesday. And Paul, where can people find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Dork of Art, all one word. Also on YouTube, also at Dork of Art, or Twitch at Angel Sword 21. And where can they find you, Alejandro?
They can find me in the Twitter at @A_Duro Segovia. And they can read my stuff at thecriticalcorner.com, which now that Loki's coming out soon, I may write something about that again.
That's
And
very interesting.
I wouldn't mind trying to review some games as far as when they finally start coming out again. And you can also find me in twitch.tv/the Slayer Giant, which I'm looking to restarting once I get back home. So to start streaming some stuff because I kind of want to stream. And yeah, that's where they can find it. Paul, it was a pleasure. Hopefully I'll see you this Thursday. But
I'm
if
looking
not,
forward
I'll
to
see you
it.
next week. We'll play it by ear. And until next time, press X.
To play.
See you all guys later.